Hello and welcome to episode 30, the conclusion of March to the Sea, the Vandals Let's Play series for Total War Attila. Last time, Arian religious fervor reached a fever pitch and non-Christian people across the empire were forced to choose conversion, exile, or death, if they received a choice at all. Ever the opportunist, Vithericus chose the route of convenience, converting to Arian Christianity, and with little hesitation carrying his eastern campaign across the Caspian Sea into the lands of the Kartli. Traveling along the paths and trails of the Silk Road, Vithericus hatched the kernel of a plan to enrich himself with the treasures of the Orient. Even as the remnants of the Hunnic invasion were obliterated or attenuated, the scourge of God was replaced by a plague of God, as an epidemic raged across the empire, a wasting illness called the consumption, claiming hundreds of thousands of lives from Germania to the Balkans, across Syria, and even in Africa. With Genseric shouldering much of the blame for this apparent divine displeasure, the citizens of the empire look elsewhere for guidance, but find little comfort in the prospect of anointing Genseric's indolent brother Gunderic, his illegitimate Hebrew-loving son Hermenegild, or the other increasingly inbred generations of Vandal and Eastern Roman offspring.
Raise your voices for our Admiral!
I never dreamed, not as a child nor even as a young man, that I would helm the greatest empire that encompasses the world as we know it. A range of territory so great that it even engulfs the sea itself. I tried to carry the weight of my father's crown, but with each battle won, with each prize taken, another jewel in the crown, more weight to be carried. I'm old, but my back is yet straight and strong, even if my leg is twisted. One day I will not be able to hold up my head with this weight upon it, and the empire, such as it is, will collapse under its own bulk. It has too many jewels and not enough substance, too many warriors and too few peasants. This has happened before, not so long ago. We were part of an instrument that destroyed the framework of the previous owners, the Western Romans. But that wood was rotten, unsuitable for the whole of a great nation. But why did it happen? God, of course. God was displeased with these Nicene heretics. But that's the wrong question to ask. How did it happen? Yes, that is a much better question. I cannot claim to know the answer with certainty, but I think that the monarchy itself is too flawed an institution to continue. Look at the feeble offspring of Theodosius, the latest in a long line of incompetence. A parade of fools the Romans propped up at their own expense. I cannot allow this to happen to my people. I need some time yet to prepare, to research ideas for a constitution, to install the necessary infrastructure at Casurgis. I know what you're thinking. Who in his right mind throws away the crown of the empire? But I assure you, if you find a diadem laying on the ground, do not pick it up for all the grief it will cause you in your life. Yes, you have heard me correctly. I am going to restore the Republic. Before we delve into the final parts of the narrative, I'll take a few moments to show the finances of the Empire and review the last few conditions needed for victory. As you can see, I'm raking in over 100,000 in wealth every turn, but almost all of that is being devoted to upkeep, with about a quarter of my income split between the navy and the building upkeep, and the lion's share going to my obscene army upkeep of 74,000 per turn. Swabian nobles are superb lancers and swordsmen, but they don't come cheap. The agricultural center, Mauritania, and trade hub Carthage remain near the top of the list of lucrative provinces, followed by the ex-capital Carthago Nova and the gold-producing regions of Galicia and Aquitania, although in a bit of a surprise, the list is topped by Macedonia. Right now, my surplus is a bit low at 9,000, and this is because my political offices have expired and need to be renewed. This actually makes a pretty big difference in that surplus, which as you saw is really just the tip of the iceberg in my finances. Before Genseric has a chance to turn this monarchy into a republic, I'll practice a little more nepotism to give a boost to my income. In general, I've consistently nominated Gunderic as High Judge, while I tend to install one of my top generals at the warlord position. It actually doesn't matter who occupies which of the 3 top offices, since the bonuses are faction-wide, although I try to keep the judge and elder spots populated with governors due to the province-specific bonuses. Switching over to the victory objectives, you can see that all of the conditions have been met for the cultural and military victory, except for the 450 AD objective. I still have a few things left to do on the Divine Triumph, however. I need to destroy or subjugate 3 more factions, not too outlandish given our track record, and I need to control the whole of the Aegyptus province. I also need a few more naval units, technologies, and the Warlord's Hold, a Tier 5 Chieftain's House type building that can only be built in the capital, Genseric, and which requires the ultimate civic technology. All these things will just take time, except for the Egypt objective, where I have no armies currently. Fortunately, I know of someone who wants to go to Egypt, and we'll find out who it is in just a moment. Back to the matter at hand. I've got hostile Romans in Asia Minor and a smattering of Huns left to deal with in Hercynia and Transcarpathia. I start closing the noose around the Huns, sending Alaric and the Oath followed by Turismod and the Glorious Reavers across the Danube toward the Carpathian Mountains. Liuva and the Blackwaters sail back down the Danube toward the Black Sea. Vithericus also approaches the Black Sea, but from the east, where he's advancing on the Asian Romans at Sinope. The settlement is poorly defended, not even possessing a full-strength garrison, the sort of easy victory that Vithericus has grown comfortable with. He's trailed by Eutharic and the Thunder and Lightning, while Gismus and the Brothers of Stone lock down public order at Melitene. Theoderic and Agila still have a few enemies to deal with in Persia, and the Solitude moves south to defend Susa from the adjacent rebels, and Agila repairs the damage done from the sack of Raga. The Huns push back aggressively against the Ostrogoths at Nitrawa, although much to my relief they don't assault Gripus' newly found settlement and instead take out their frustration on the nearby Quadians. The Romans in Asia Minor evidently realize they've bitten off way more than they can chew, and no counterattack comes against Vithericus. Indeed, the Huns have seen to the end of the Quadian faction. There's ongoing spread of disease, which as you'll see never completely abates. We're able to secure our political offices with a little political maneuvering on the part of Genseric or the nominees themselves. And as you can see that my surplus income has more than doubled to a healthy 21,000 per turn. With Vithericus having struck the first blow by land, Liuva and Genseric close in to deliver the second by sea, with the Blackwaters entering the Black Sea via the mouth of the Danube, and Genseric with his elite but slightly weakened fighting force, the Larchen Prows, attacking the port of Cyzicus from the Hellespont. Fortunately, the Roman defenses are again underpowered, and Genseric easily claims the city. To the east, Vithericus and Eutharic continue their march westward toward the Asian capital of Nicomedia, across the Strait of Bosphorus from Constantinople. Gripus hastens to relieve his cherished colony of Nitrawa from the attack of the Huns, force marching the Carian Crows back to the city. Hermenegild then approaches from the south, at first scattering the larger throng, and then picking off the hordes individually, starting with the Children of the Larch. None of these Hunnic hordes are anything resembling the terrifying force we faced previously, most of them simply ragtag bands of has-been Hunnic warriors propped up by Germanic brigands and common thugs. Hermenegild also takes advantage of the Casurga smithy to enhance his weapons and armor of the Children of the Forest, and then he heads after the final 2 hordes, first driving back the wayward warriors, and then battering the Golden Army. I don't have enough movement left this season to finish off the Huns, but they're essentially broken at this point, and Turismod and Alaric join the hunt from the southeast. Theoderic takes care of the rebels near Susa, and then I decide it's time to end our alliance with Persia, in preparation for the completion of the Eastern Purge. We get another call to arms, this time from the Eastern Romans who are attacking the Lakhmids. I see no reason not to support our old ally and the imperial namesake, so I throw in with Rome and their numerous tributaries against the small Eastern faction. Our allies have seen to the end of the Huns, although I didn't catch a glimpse of how it exactly happened. Genseric likewise sets to work orchestrating the demise of the Asian Romans, with Liuva blockading the port of Nicomedia, and Vithericus and Eutharic assaulting the walls with overwhelming force. Even though the enemy have a sizable defending force, they simply cannot stand up to the combined might of the elite troops in the Madness, the Thunder and Lightning, and the Black Waters. Eutharic pursues the last Asian Roman army but can't catch up with them this turn, which is of little consequence, since this faction is now essentially broken, just like the Huns were last turn. As Genseric sweats and bleeds for the Empire, I noticed that Genseric has gained a particularly unbecoming trait, and has become known for being downright indolent. So comfortable has he become in his seat as High Judge of Carthage. If he could find someone else to move his bowels for him, he would. And the trait has a host of negative modifiers to authority, cunning, and zeal. Not everyone is content to rest on their laurels or have their bowels tended to by others, and Theoderic takes the fight to the Persians at Stakhur. Another combined assault with overwhelming force against the large but weakened army defending the city results in another Vandal acquisition, and the Persians now control only their final settlement at Siraf, leaving us a nice large block of Vandal-controlled territory in the east. I'm also trying to solidify and consolidate my territory in Europe as well, and with my armies there having eliminated the immediate threats, I decide to have the Oath and the Children of the Forest recolonize the last two regions of Pannonia at Sopione and Sirmium, a fitting end to their long flight from Pannonia so long ago. The Geats and Jutes end their military access treaties during the intern phase, which is a bit disconcerting, but perhaps it's fair turnabout for all of the backstabbing military maneuvers that Genseric has played a part in of late, and no open hostility results for the moment. The last of the Asian forces attack Genseric at Cyzicus, perhaps in a desperate attempt to bring down the faction leader. They simply aren't up to the task of taking on the Larchen Prows or our Marcomanni reinforcements. The eastern separatists far to the east in Parthia have decided to openly declare their hostility, no doubt a vainglorious show that will end in defeat for them eventually, although my eastern forces are otherwise occupied for the moment. That last army at Cyzicus was in fact the last of the Asia faction, and that brings us one step closer to the required 40 factions defeated. I've had the Mad Raiders chasing a small Rugian fleet off the northern coast of Iberia for some time now in an attempt to claim another easy kill, but they keep evading his attacks, and it'll be a few more turns before I can corner them in the crook of land between the western coast of Gaul and the northern coast of Iberia. With his job complete, Vithericus sends a few of his better troops off to join the Thunder and Lightning, before disbanding the rest of his force and boarding a transport to the south.
Vithericus, it is the middle of the night in a thunderstorm. My sleep is disturbed with visions and phantoms. At the door of my quarters there was a wolf, and I followed him to the shore, where a herd of deer drank the salted water of the sea. Strangely, they were undisturbed by the nearby pack of wolves. Maybe you can join them in. I'm sure some of your mercenaries are still awake gambling at this hour. Perhaps the camaraderie will clear your head. I saw other things, Eutharic. I saw myself among other men in a great city along a great waterway. It was the land of Egypt. Was the river the Nile? I do not know. I have never been there before. Maybe it was man-made. Yes, it was a canal, wide enough for a ship, maybe 2 small ships. The Persians told me of such a thing, a waterway connecting the Nile River to the Red Sea. This was a land of plenty, flourishing like an oasis in the desert, where gold comes out of the ground for men who seek it, and fed by the wealth of the Far East, the greatest conduit to the Orient the world has ever known.
You should not concern yourself with the faraway land of Egypt. We have plenty of responsibilities here.
I am departing for Egypt tomorrow. You may have my mercenary contracts. The men you do not want, you can send them away. I can recruit more men in Alexandria. The madness is not an army. The madness is Vithericus. And wherever Vithericus goes, the madness follows.
Vithericus' look-alike, Theoderic, closes in on the last of the Persians at Siraf, and together with Agila, they skewer the hapless Easterners, taking the city, destroying their armies, and ending their faction in one fell swoop. With Theoderic seeing to the city conversion at Siraf, Agila returns to Stakhur to quell the unrest there. Our in-turn sequences, it seems, are never without an interesting call to arms, and another is issued this turn as well, as the Venetians, our ally to the far northeast of the map, have taken offense to the Burgundian horde. I can't say I care much one way or the other about the outcome of this fight between ants on the campaign map, and I decide in the end just to stay out of it. In a turn of events that happens for the first time, but which is fated to happen again and again, Mazun rebels attack Omana. I decided this time to manually defend the city, so I'll share the brief military action with you this time. Although I won't bore you or myself with the repeated bludgeonings the city will receive from the Mazun in the near future. We have only our small fleet of the Sea Steed Masters here in our garrison, but I think we can triumph. My solitary land unit, a single regiment of Spearmasters, I set up defending one entrance of the town square, while my Marines are immediately offshore ready to unload their crew. I start unloading at the docks wherever possible, sending the men ashore as quickly as I can. By the time the Mazun make it into the city, I've already got some of my Marines and archers arriving to defend the central compound. The enemy capture the first tower at the city outskirts, but by this time, I'm already moving Marines in to defend the other compound entrance, and my archers start launching arrows overhead at the oncoming enemy. The Mazun cavalry smartly take advantage of my softer Marines who don't handle the charges so well, and they break through the first unit of Marines fairly quickly, barreling into the next, although their momentum is slowed a bit as my other Marines move in from all sides. Anmar, the desert chieftain, finds himself under serious threat by 2 units of Marines, and the Spearmasters are holding the other entrance with almost low losses to show for it. It's almost like having a continuous wall there. As my Marines bring down Anmar and send his riders scurrying away, the morale shock is sufficient to break the attackers at the right-hand compound entrance. And this in turn enables my Marines to begin circling around to hit the attackers at the other entrance in the flank. Unfortunately, just outside the compound wait a unit of desert bowmen who harry my Marines, skirmishing and shooting all the way to the edge of town. Fortunately, this still leaves me a unit of Marines to assault the last remaining melee infantry in the flank, and that too results in a quick defeat for the units attacking my spearmen. After a painful couple of minutes chasing down the skirmishers, my main force approaches the enemy siege equipment, and this apparently signals to them that the game is up, and the remainder of the Mazun flee the battlefield. Back on the campaign map, my incredibly talented but untrustworthy commander Vithericus is reforming his mercenary band in Egypt, reinstating the madness under a new band of fortune hunters. And Vithericus is going to throw all of his enormous wealth into one big project, which in turn will get us the land we need for our last provincial victory objective. He's going to rebuild the ancient Canal of Darius from the Nile to the Red Sea, and at last bringing one step closer to the coveted treasures of the Orient. But in order to do this, Vithericus is going to need the enormous wealth of the gold mines at the now desolate Genseric, and he's going to have to do this right under the nose of the Eastern Roman Emperor Publius Vespasianus. Vithericus hires a corps of Germanic spearmen, and of course a huge number of mercenaries in preparation for his journey south. Omana won a narrow victory last turn against the Mazun rebels, but still more rebels and now an army of Lakhmids are threatening the port, so I send Theoderic across the Persian Gulf to intercept our enemies. Agila meanwhile heads up north to contain the overly enthusiastic eastern separatists. The Lakhmids back off from Omana, but we receive another attack from the Mazun rebels, and this time they really pose no threat with Theoderic present, and we're able to wipe them out, for now. We lost our longtime priestess Erlieva, the Bishop of Rome, to old age. Fortunately, I can not only recruit a replacement, now I can recruit 2 since the Tier 5 patriarchal seat is finally complete at Constantinople. It probably isn't worth the enormous monetary upkeep actually, but it will help us keep religious dominance on the map. I wind up recruiting Frido, a chamberlain with a bit of extra tax bonus, and Julia Runa, a public speaker with a small increase to the Inspire Populace skill. Vithericus and the Madness head south and recolonize Genseric, immediately setting up a frontier settlement and laying the groundwork to reconstruct his canal. The Solitude head off in pursuit of the Lakhmids at Omana, but aren't able to catch them this turn, and the same can be said of the Giants, who close in on the eastern separatists near Abershar. Genseric returns to Antioch to repair his fleet and replace the lost or damaged ships. Even though we've repelled the Mazun, with a small port garrison defense, this isn't enough to dissuade the Lakhmids, who bring 2 of their forces in to strike at my port of Mishan. This battle I'm less confident about, especially since the enemy are fielding my hated adversary, the Kurdish archer, in droves, but I assume it's worth a try, so again I try to fight the battle manually. I set up my infantry on the interior of the city, with the archers looking out over the settlement from the central raised slope, or manning the barricade at the bottom, backed up by my spearmen and axes. My cavalry start out at the edge of town as usual, and my ships are set up just off the coast. Right at the outset, I make a mistake, giving my boats attack orders to harass the advancing regiments with arrows while I try to micromanage my cavalry, who demolish a unit of mercenary desert raiders and then turn their attention on some desert legionaries. I see that my archer ships are really losing badly in an arrow duel with the Kurdish archers. I try to back off the ships, but I've already lost plenty of men. So with that plan dashed, I send the ship circling around the coast to land at the docks closer to my defense point, as the enemy are now reaching the interior of the settlement. Meanwhile, my cavalry have done okay, breaking most of the enemy in the middle group, but losing a significant number of Alani nobles in the process, and losing all of the Vandal raiders for that matter. Still more disheartening news, as the enemy general has snuck around my spears to really hit my axe warband hard, who lose half their number in the blink of an eye. As my marines pile out of their ships, my spearmasters try to regain control of the situation, and the Alani nobles struggle to completely break a tiny regiment of slingers on the outskirts of town. Finally, we catch a break as the enemy general is killed by our spearmasters, and the marines are ever so slowly making their way into town. The Alani nobles, tired though they are, begin the long process of circling back around the town to confront the Kurdish archers who caused my ships so much trouble. My own archers are really unloading into the desert levee, which is having a nice effect, one of the units already wavering. The marines are forced to address the Kurdish archers to get them to retreat, and the Alani nobles are moving in to slowly cut off their escape. As the marines and the Alani nobles sandwich the archers between their charges, and the spearmasters break their foes, we've essentially repelled the initial assault. But now the enemy reinforcements are coming in, and my archers are running quite low on arrows. I try to set up my spearmasters to counter the oncoming enemy general, but he's too swift, and darts past to crash into my marines, who get the worst of the matchup. Nevertheless, my spears punish the enemy cavalry for their bold move and send them fleeing. The Alani nobles and marauders are really struggling to repel the Kurdish archers. This is a normal occurrence. And then the unthinkable. The archers actually drive off the Alani nobles. Never count out the Kurdish archers until they're dead. The spearmasters face off against more enemy cavalry, slowly bringing down their number. But now my archers are fighting in melee, and we're under continual bombardment from the enemy's fresh ranged infantry, and you can see where this is going. The Kurdish archers fight off my marauders on the edge of town, and then it's up to my infantry to deal with the numerous ranged units, and it just isn't possible with so many stones and arrows being pitched our way. Eventually, my men have had enough and break, relinquishing the defense of the town, although I can hardly blame them in the circumstances. We get a valiant defeat for the effort, with almost 2,000 Lakhmid casualties, but even with this result going in our favor, it feels like a bit of a waste, as the Lakhmids just sack the city and move on. Theoderic responds by moving north to reinforce the beleaguered city, and sets about repairing the damage done. Slightly to the west, Gismus and the Brothers of Stone approach from the north to threaten the Lakhmid capital at Hira. Up north, Agila has nearly reached the eastern rebel settlement of Dahistan as he approaches the northern periphery of Merv. Another interesting call to arms happens this in-turn sequence, and once again our carefully built alliances continue falling to pieces. The Ostrogoths have declared war on the Geats. The Ostrogoths have severed ties with the other factions already, and the Jutes will have the Geats backing them up, so I choose to support the Northmen in this fight. The Ostrogoths move their forces either north or south from Mediolanum, but there are no immediate consequences for our choice to support the Jutes. Likewise, the Geats move about the map, but don't engage the enemy. The Jutes, on the other hand, quickly take advantage of our contribution to the war by confronting a larger Ostrogothic force in range of our settlement at Verunum, giving us the opportunity to send out the strong town garrison and wipe out the Ostrogoths. Still more in-turn shenanigans as the Lakhmids, seeing the writing on the wall, agree to become an Eastern Roman tributary state, giving me the opportunity to end the war. Finally, another ally declares war on the Jutes, and this time it's the Angles, and again I choose to support the Jutes in the fight. Having replenished his fleet, and with a fresh set of wars on his hands, Genseric heads back west into the Mediterranean from Antioch. Hunneric is in a perfect position to launch a preemptive strike against the Angles, and he departs to Leferdum to capture their capital at Angulis. Their moderate-sized garrison puts up a bit of a fight, killing over 300 of Hunric's men, but in the end we gain the territory, unifying the province of Frisia. Trapstila's Rugian pirates have finally gotten themselves cornered off the coast of Gaul, leaving the Mad Raiders free to confront them and sink their fleet. This ends their faction and gets us to the 40 destroyed requirement for the Divine Triumph victory conditions. With the threat of the Lakhmids removed for now, Theoderic busies himself running around the Persian Gulf with the Solitude, crushing yet another rebellion, this time at Siraf. Agila has finally reached Dahistan, and his giants overwhelm the defenders. He does this time what he should have done before. He raises the settlement and obliterates the faction. Back in Europe, it's time to focus on the Ostrogoths, but first, the Oath eliminate an Illyrian rebel faction at Severia, afterwards marching onward to Verunum. The Children of the Forest also head west from their station at Uvavum, marching on Ostrogothic-held Augusta Vindelicorum, and taking the city without too much effort. Huneric continues his fight against the Angles attacking their city of Rugion. This too proves to be an easy conquest, leaving the Rugians apparently with only one small horde to the south, and a tiny fleet off the coast of Rugion. There are lots of Ostrogothic agent actions, as they have several priests and heroes, and I'll spare you the details except to note that the main headache they cause me is prolonging the Ostrogothic turn during the end turn sequence. Next turn, we've completed the top tier patrimonial monarch technology, allowing the construction of the monarch's castle. Ironically, just before Genseric is about to set aside the crown. Vithericus also has some building of his own to do, and starts work on the canal system in Egypt. Along with the warlord's castle, I also need one more technology to hit the victory objective, so under the circumstances I think it's fitting to choose some mercenary contracts. The castle and the technology will take us 2 more years to complete, so we'll hit the military and cultural victory conditions slightly in advance of the divine victory. An Ostrogothic fleet sails southward from Genoa, while we suffer from more of their numerous agent actions, but no attacks this turn. All of my political offices have to be filled again this turn, and I noticed that for whatever reason, Uric and Geilemir, long absent from the faction page, have suddenly reappeared. I'm not completely sure why this is, but I suspect it's because Uric's wife has died, and Geilemir's wife lost her association with the Axum faction. Alaric and the Oath advance on the Ostrogothic capital of Mediolanum, finding it lightly defended and easily taken, while Grepus does the same at Genua, reducing the Ostrogoths now to a couple of hordes and a fleet. With a click of the end turn button, we've reached 450 AD, and the final cutscene for the game.
The day of reckoning has come, and when he opened the 7th seal, there was silence. Let them bathe in the warmth of the sun, for they are the faithful, the righteous, the strong. These words are true, as God is my witness. It is done.
So there you have it, we've simultaneously completed the military and cultural victory conditions, although the game apparently preferences the cultural victory which is listed here. However, I'll continue to play just a bit longer to achieve the divine victory, and we'll hit the high points over the next 2 years as I go. My agents throw themselves against the Ostrogothic priestess in Dalmatia, without any of them having much success. My armies meanwhile pursue the remnants of the Ostrogothic faction. I spent a little time over the next several turns recolonizing some desolate provinces, in part just to make the map a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, although it's of little real consequence. The Ostrogoths finally decide the time is right to attack, and bring their forces combined against Alaric and the Oath, although I'm able to withdraw the army to safety. Next turn, Alaric gets his revenge by confronting each of the Ostrogothic hordes individually in night assaults, and finds them easy prey for the Oath. As you can see, the balance bar is really in our favor in these one-on-one matchups. This results in complete destruction of the Ostrogothic land forces, except for their pesky agents. Now Genseric will take it upon himself to take care of the rest of the faction sailing west from Italy to circle around Corellis in pursuit of the final Ostrogothic fleet. At Egypt, Vithericus is still working hard on his canal and finally got the gold mine underway that will be needed to fund this venture, but this may have brought some unwanted attention upon the enterprise. During the intern sequence, a few Eastern Roman armies have begun sniffing around Vithericus' operation at Oxyrhynchus. As the months pass and another season goes by, still more Roman armies gather around the Nile, and by 451 AD, the completion of the gold mine has brought a staggering number of Roman armies that have accumulated around the settlement.
What is the meaning of this? This is my settlement. We have dispensation to move through Vandal territory, and I must remind you, technically, it all belongs to Emperor Vespasianus. You have caught his attention with all this fervid mining and digging. You have been kicking up a cloud of dirt so vast, we thought it was a sandstorm. It is none of your concern. We know what you are doing, and by the orders of Vespasianus, you are to cease at once. If it helps you to accept the finality of this decree, let me enlighten you. It will not work. The canal will become clogged with silt, or you will need to construct a system of locks so extensive that it is well beyond your means or even ours. Did you not know that the Red Sea sits nearly 2 fathoms above the Mediterranean? I applaud your enthusiasm, but really you are no Roman engineer. Not in 100 years with 100,000 men could you complete this task. Do not be angry, Vithericus. If you knew our true purpose for being here, you would rejoice. As I am sure you are aware, this Vandal Empire, if it can be called that, will fall completely to pieces on the death of Genseric. My emperor has waited long to reclaim Constantinople, but Genseric annoyingly has managed to live well beyond his life expectancy. And now he wants to reform the Republic. We cannot allow this to happen. Why would I help you? A Gothic homeland, a place for your people, and you, king of the Goths. No more bowing and scraping to Vandals, or to anyone. Isn't this what you really wanted? Yes, I want that. How do I get it? Just listen to me, and I will tell you of our plan. All you need to do is to show up at the right time.
Genseric has finally caught up with the Ostrogothic fleet off the coast of Italy near Rome, and he's able to very easily sink their ships, and as a result, ending the Ostrogoths as a faction and removing the very annoying agent actions that have plagued the intern phase. The Eastern Romans and their tributary, the Lakhmids, have come to blows over something or other, and this gives me the opportunity to claim their capital at Hira, while Gismus recolonizes the nearby desert settlement of Dumatha, with Arabia and the rest of the east for that matter falling exclusively under imperial control via the Vandal faction or our Eastern Roman allies. With that said, there's still a large outstanding Lakhmid force, as well as a pretty dangerous looking cluster of Mazun rebels at Omana. The Romans depart from Oxyrhynchus for the most part, evidently satisfied with whatever arrangement they reach with Vithericus. With only one turn left before the completion of the Warlord's Castle, and 2 turns until the completion of the research requirement, I got a little sloppy sending Hunneric after a tiny little Anglican fleet in the Baltic Sea. Cleverly, this turned out to be a decoy, as the AI takes advantage of Hunneric's absence to sack Rugion for a nominal payback. Likewise, the Mazun take advantage of my bewilderment to bring their now full-strength rebel army to bear on Omana. And right now I guess I was channeling Gundrit because I let the enemy take the city and lose a whole bunch of ships in the process. Nevertheless, it shouldn't affect the ultimate outcome. I have to recruit several more ships to get back to my required total of 80, but we still have just one more in-turn sequence until our ultimate aims are achieved. Just before the final turn of the game, the Eastern Romans depart from Egypt entirely, their location now a complete mystery. I'm forced to endure a couple more humiliating losses around the Persian Gulf, but finally with the arrival of spring and 452 AD, we've achieved divine victory. Nothing fancy, just a summary of the faction status in the event log, but there it is. A couple of key points that are worth noting. Genseric, now at the old age of 73, remains the faction leader, and in fact he's ruled for 35 years in this role. For all of our gains, the Vandal Empire never really did achieve the supreme level of Imperium, with our level still at terrifying. I've heard that the technology tree plays a big role in determining the Imperium level, so maybe we just needed a few more technologies. I'll also briefly show you the map, so you can see the full extent of the Empire as well as what sort of shape it's in, since I think this is a more helpful graphic than the victory log notification. The Vandal territories here are colored in yellow, and as you can see we control most of the known world with a few notable exceptions where there are still swathes of destruction left by the Huns, mostly in Far Eastern Europe such as Scythia and Sarmatia. There's still a couple of hardy barbarian tribes in the north like the Saxons, the Jutes, and the Geats, and a couple of barbarian hordes like the Thuringians and the Grothingians and the Marcomanns still wandering the map around the Danube River in the Black Sea. Tiny pockets of resistance still exist in the Mazun and the Lakhmids to the southeast, while the enigmatic Byzantines and their tributaries have held on to a shred of their empire at Libya, Tripoli, Egypt, Palestine, and Arabia. The wealthy provinces I discussed before are seen with their most lucrative regions shining in the gold color, particularly at Galicia, Macedonia, Mauritania, Carthage, and Carthago Nova. Public order is in pretty good shape overall, with only a couple of unhappy provinces still present, and this is probably due in no small part to the dominance of Arian Christianity, which has touched most of the map, although it is by no means the exclusive religion. Finally, in case you'd like to see, this is what region fertility looks like in 452 AD, almost completely barren. We've reached the end of the game, but not quite the end of the story. In order to cement his legacy and his empire as a lasting institution, Genseric convenes the greatest council of Carthage ever called, sailing with the Larchen Prows to meet with the leaders of his own faction to discuss the coalescence of the empire into a single governing body, to draft a constitution and re-establish the republic of a great Vandal nation under the auspices of the true faith of Arian Christianity. Bring the ship around the cape. Why are there fires in the city? Something is wrong here.
Everyone stay calm and wait until Genseric comes around the cape. Once he's committed, you can start firing the artillery. But I don't want to see a flicker of our hidden Greek fire until he's come in for a boarding action.
Sire, Vandal ships are blocking our entry to the port.
Yes, these do resemble our ships, but I do not recognize the flag.
Incoming!
What the hell? They're shooting at us! At me! Who among my people is so brazen as to attack his own king? Deploy the forward 2 Liburnians to close range with those ships. Take care of that artillery. Hard starboard here. Heave on that sail. Order the rest of the fleet back out of range.
There's a Roman blockade extending from the tip of the cape. We're surrounded.
Very well then. Grab your oars, ramming speed, and prepare to board.
Greek fire! They'll burn our fleet like kindling!
Do not retreat. You will fall into the jaws of those mercenary ships. Keep fighting, men.
Please, my king, the fire is spreading. You must abandon ship.
No, damn it, no. Keep fighting.
Help me grab the king. We must get him off the ship. No, we must not flee. The heat is unbearable. Ah!
Benigeld, are you sure this is your father? I think he might be a fish. He's been coughing up water for the last 5 minutes.
Dad, come on, get up. We have to get you out of here before the Romans figure out you're still alive.
We'll have to load him into this cart over here. He's not going to be riding a horse with that leg.
Well, you do the lifting, Josephus. You know my arm is almost useless.
That's a perfectly functional prosthetic, my boy. Now roll up your sleeves and help him up.
Where are you taking me? My fleet is burning.
Old King, you and I are going back to the island of the Jutes, where it's safe. There's another little island just to the east of there. That seems like a perfect place for an emperor to live out his life in exile.
The empire was divided and distributed to the parties involved in the conspiracy, with the Franks receiving a more than generous share of Gaul, while the Ostrogoths reclaimed all they lost and more, ruling the Western Romans through a puppet king, a pretense I assume Odoacer will not maintain for much longer. Publius Vespasianus, of course, got his coveted city of Constantinople back, from which he rules a substantial if diminished empire. Genseric capitulated so quickly, even I was surprised, and now Hunneric rules at Carthage, which is the solitary shard remaining of the now shattered Vandal State. He periodically antagonizes the Romans with his abuses of the Nicene bishops, and whether the Byzantines are truly vexed by this I do not know. But I expect that one day they will obliterate his kingdom on this pretext.
For my own 30 pieces of silver, I received Iberia as my Gothic state, and it is my daily chagrin to rule this war-torn state, constantly suppressing rebellions and putting out fires of public discontent. I got the power that I craved, although to this day the riches of the Orient elude my grasp. What about Genseric? If I knew where he was, I would not tell you. He may have died at the Battle of Carthage, or he may have escaped to exile. He was an old man even at the time, so I expect that he should be dead by now either way. On the other hand, Genseric was a brilliant leader, a visionary when it came to naval matters, and a consummate adventurer, so it would not surprise me if he has gone on a great expedition. It is a well-known fact, he would tell me, that the earth is round, and a sailor will one day find his way to the Orient, not by the east, but by the west.